Hey everyone, it's Paige. I know it's been a while since I've gone live in here. Just with the winter and 3 kids, we have been having all kinds of illnesses, just kind of going through the house. And then recently my husband was gone on a work trip in their remote island location in Hawaii. So I have a lot of feelings about that because he left me here with 3 children and went to a tropical locale, even though it was for work. But he brought me back a lot of pictures, and I thought that it would be fun to go through and edit some of the pictures for you and just kind of give you guys a little idea of how I would go through and edit pictures and do it as quickly as possible. So there's about 214 pictures, which you could think, wow, that's going to take a super long time to edit all of those. But I'm going to just go through and show you some tricks that I use when I'm editing to really speed things up. And I know this was unplanned, so if if you're here, comment, let me know that you're here. If you can hop on, I think you'll learn a lot. But if you can't hop on, that's fine too. You can watch the replay. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to get started. So I wasn't there in Hawaii, as I've pointed out. So I did not get to see all of the beautiful things and know exactly what they should look like in real life. But my husband went on and on about it, so I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of how the colors should look and how things should appear. So I'm gonna do my best. And I'm just moving around the windows for my recording here so I can see what I'm doing. So this was one of the mountains that he went on, and I'll just zoom in here. Now I sent him with an older camera of mine. It had full manual control, but my husband doesn't know how to use those. So I just set it in like the auto setting for him. And so these are all just, point and shoot, pictures in auto mode because my husband was not going to mess around with anything while he was there. He just wanted to take some pictures to commemorate the trip. So this picture here, this is one of the mountains there, and this trail right here, you can see my husband, and you can actually see some of the people here. He actually climbed up this, but he did not go all the way to the top because he got like halfway up where it started to get super steep, and he's like, this is stupid. I have 3 children at home, and I don't, and a wife, and I don't need to make her a widow. So because I guess it's not just like it's actually like an old rail bed, and I have some pictures when I get there, and like there are bridges that you have to cross, so that's pretty crazy. But one thing that he did say is while he was there, it was kind of drizzly and rainy the whole time. So you can see that these pictures have a lot of haze, and you can really see it in this picture here, how hazy it is. And so the first thing that I would do when working with these would be just to get rid of some of that haze. So I'm going to use the dehaze slider, and I'm going to bring that up, and you can see that it starts to get rid of some of that haze. And if I go really far, you can see he had some water drops on his lens, it looks like. But if I go really far, it's going to make it like super broody and stuff. That's probably a little bit too far. So I'm just going to get rid of some of the haze. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down the highlights some. And when I bring down the highlights, what that's going to do is it's going to make the sky up here, it's going to bring back some of those clouds a little bit. So you can see that that's bringing back the clouds, but it's not making this part with the mountains and everything so brooding. So I like the way that looks. The greens are a little fluorescent to me, and while I know the greens are beautiful in Hawaii, I don't think they're necessarily quite that bright. So I'm going to go down to my HSL sliders, and this is where I can kind of fine tune the greens. So I'm going to bring them up a little bit. Said that Lightroom crashed, but it's still here. Let me see if it's still showing up here. Okay, I think it's still showing up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the greens up a little bit just so they're not quite as fluorescent, and then I'm going to slightly bring down the luminance of the greens, just because I think that just looks a little bit more pleasing to the eye. And I'm going to bring up the saturations of the blues a little bit just to give the sky a little bit more blue. So that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now there are a couple it looks like there were some raindrops on his lens. So I could pull this into Photoshop and I could use, you know, like the clone tool or healing tool or something. But since this isn't a really, there's not a lot I have to do here with this, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to use the spot remover tool here in Lightroom, which is this little thing right here. And what you do is just click on your spot, and then it's going to just find another spot and it will just quickly remove the spot for you. And let me click that off so you can see that it just quickly just took those spots out. And there's one more over here that I'm going to remove. So that's just a super quick thing to do so you don't have to bring it into Photoshop. So now that I have that fixed, what I can do is these next few photos here were taken under pretty much the same conditions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift on my keyboard. I'll hold that down, and now I'm going to go over to my sync button. And I'm going to sync everything. I don't want to sync the spot removal because that's going to make things weird because there aren't spots on all of the images. So I'm just going to go ahead and click synchronize, and so now you'll see down here that's going to go ahead and take those settings that I made and it's going to sync those over all of those images. So now I just edited one image and I can go through here and just make sure for fine tuning that I like the way that the rest of them look. Okay, there was, I don't know if you saw that, there was like some weird pixelation, but it went away, so I think it's just my computer's being, so this one is, I'm just gonna bring up the exposure slightly. It's a little underexposed there, just slightly. And so I'm happy with that. So then the next set of images were taken, now this was taken with a really cheap like off-brand GoPro that was like $50 or something. So he just wanted something, he was doing a little bit of snorkeling, so he wanted something that was going to go, that he could, you know, take underwater. And I was not letting him take any of my cameras underwater. So we got this, and it did a pretty good job, except, and you'll really see it here in a minute when I bring down the haze. But I don't know if there was something on the lens or if it's just because this camera is super cheap, but on every single, because it's in the same place in every single photo, but there's like some weird funky pixelation. So, and I'll show you here, you can see it in this one here. You can see the weird funky pixelation that shows up. And so when, so I'm going to show you how I would get rid of that. So if there was any that I was going to print and not just show people, you know, we show, like he went and showed my mother-in-law and stuff, and I didn't care about it, but he did want to maybe print a couple of these just to have, on our gallery wall, just, you know, to, cause he thought they were kind of cool. So I did figure out a way to kind of fix that so it's not as noticeable, and I'll show you that. But we're going to just, let me just reset this one here, and collapse this. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start editing with this one. So the first thing, again, is a little hazy in the water. And he said that the water is really clear there. But again, just because of all the rain and stuff, when he was talking to the locals, they said it's actually a lot hazier. But he said the picture showed up even hazier. And, you know, that's understandable because this was a super cheap camera. So I'm going to bring down the haze. And you can see as I do that, it really starts to bring out that weird pixelation. But I'm going to bring down the haze and maybe just slightly boost the exposure. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do with those. So now I just want to sync these over the other images. So I'm just going to pick them all here. I'm just going to go through, I'm going to pick all of the underwater images because they're all taken pretty much with the same settings, same camera and everything, same time, and we're just going to hit sync. So that's going to sync this over all of the images. And you'll see down here, it's going to start syncing those. You see up here, it's working. Okay, so that is done. So now you can see as I go through that it pieced those settings, so I don't have to go through and edit each one of these individually. Now, if there was one that I wanted to print, and I'll show you what I would do to get rid of that weird pixelation, and that is something that I'm going to have to bring it into Photoshop for. So let me just find one that maybe I'd want to bring into Photoshop. There was one with like a cool black fish. Oh yeah, this one. So this fish is pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this one into Photoshop. I just lost it again. What is it? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to Edit in Photoshop, and it's going to open it up here. I'm going to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. So that means that it will take the adjustments that I made in Lightroom and it'll open up in Photoshop with those adjustments. If I just want to edit a copy, it would just make a copy of the original photo, or if I do edit original, it's just going to edit the original. So edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments is usually what I pick. And let me just switch here so you can see. All right, so here we are in Photoshop, and let me just close this. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to create a copy of this because I want to do my editing as non-destructively as possible. And so that's why I want to make a copy of this. And then I'm going to go to my filters. I'm going to go to blur, and I'm going to go to the Gaussian blur. And what I want to do is I want to blur this just until I don't see the weird pixelation. So So I'm going to do about 3. You don't want to do it too much. There's still a little bit of the weird pixelation over here, but that's just going to be what it is. And we might fix that a little bit. So I'm going to do that. So now I'm going to duplicate this again. I'm going to go to Filter, Other, High Pass. And now I'm going to bring up my radius, and I'm looking just at the fish. I'm going to bring up my radius here because I want to make him crisp again. So I'm going to do this about 6. I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to select Overlay. And you can see that that made the fish crisper. Now I'm going to add a layer mask to this. I'm going to invert my layer mask by pressing Command I over the layer mask. I'm going to take my brush. I want my brush to be white. So I'm going to press the X on my keyboard, and now I'm just going to paint over the fish. So you can see that I'm bringing back the fish, so he's a little crisper. And then I still have quite a bit of that there, and again, I'm trying to get this like good enough that I can print it. Now, if I want to make some of these rocks stand out, I can also paint like over some of the rocks just to give a little bit more detail, like bring back the detail of the rocks. So I could kind of do that like here and kind of bring that back a little bit. Now if I wanted a little bit more blur here, I could do that, or I could do like a gradient. So, well, that's cool. I'm going to change the color of my gradient here. I'm going to change it to the blue color. And I'm going to change this one. Right. And now I'm going to change this where it's coming from here. And move it up a little bit. And now I'm just going to paint with black, so I need to press X on my keyboard and get it off of the fish here. And so that just kind of masks that little bit there. So now we'll see what we did here. So this is, so we have that, and now we have that, and that would be good enough just to print a small print to put on the wall just to remember the trip by. So we can just go ahead and save this. And when I save it, it'll actually, here in a second, it'll show up here in Lightroom. So now you can see it's here in Lightroom. So like I said, again, I wouldn't do this to like every single photo, but that fish is pretty cool, so I wanted to try to save that one as much as I could without having that weird, because you can see, here's the one with the weird pixelation. I think you can agree this looks a little bit better. But yeah, so all of those photos are pretty good. I can just, go through and see if there's anything I would need to fine tune, but I think all of these look pretty good since I synced those settings. So now we have this one, and this one's actually pretty good. I'm gonna, again, the grass is a little like fluorescent, and I think that's just my, this was, like I said, this was like an older camera, and I think it's just getting old and kind of weird. So I could kind of fix the grass there a little bit. and this was a clearer day, so we don't have, you know, as much of that haze and everything there, but I could bring the haze down just a tiny bit. And then I can sync this over these images here. So now I'm going to sync. And these are a little hazy, so I'll bring the haze down. This was that those railroad tracks up the mountain that I was talking about. So I'm just going to find that whole set of pictures where he was here on the mountain, and now I'm going to sync those. And I can go through and fine tune, and then there's one, let me show you. So this was like, that's how steep it was getting, and then this is one that he took going, like shooting down, like that's what they were climbing up. It's crazy. And I don't even think you're supposed to climb up it. I think it's like one of those things that you're not like actually supposed to do, but people do it anyways. He's insane. All right, so these were taken at the beach, and again, it's a little hazy here, so we're gonna bring the haze up a little bit. I'm gonna bring down those highlights just to make those clouds stick out a little bit more, and maybe just boost, let's see, boost the exposure slightly. But that looks pretty good, so I'm gonna just sync that then over these photos here. You can see it'll work there. And then I can go through, and then if I need to fine tune any of them, I can, but I think those look pretty good. This one's still a little hazy, so we'll just fine tune this one. And also bring up the exposure just a tiny bit. So now that I edited that one, and that one's similar to these here, I'm going to, I'll sync that one over these here. And so there you have it. So I edited all 214 of his vacation photos, and even got one really nice for print. And it took me, I don't know, I've been on here with you guys for, I don't know, about 20 minutes. Whoops. Okay, sorry. About 20 minutes, but I was also walking you through this. So if it was something that I was doing on my own, it would probably take me maybe 10 minutes or less. So that, I hope that taught you some fun tricks in, you know, Lightroom, and we stepped into Photoshop a little bit and just kind of showed you how you can edit things really quickly. Because if you have, you know, the big powerhouse thing in Lightroom is that if you have those similar photos that are all in, you know, that are all like the same product, or you know, if you're doing model photography and it's like same settings and same kind of lighting, same location, you can usually sync your settings, and you're going to have a really good starting point where you're only going to have to fine tune a few things. So I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. And I will hopefully be able to hop in and go live a lot more often, hopefully. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.